Hey everybody, Erin Wester here. It is 9:30 in the morning here on Wednesday. Last night I posted I would be going live today, telling more about my story. I had a training call for my accountability group coaches last night, and I kind of went a whole lot more of my story than I usually do, and I thought it would be a good idea to share it with my followers so you guys kind of really know what I'm all about. I've shared a lot about losing my daughter and the trauma of that, but I've experienced trauma before that. So I'm going to go back to 2003. A long time ago, I was 23. I'd been going to school for 4.5 years at college. I had 4.5 years at that time at UW River Falls. I was going to school for animal science. I wanted to be a horse trainer. That's what I wanted to do with my life. Um, I was in my first semester of my 5th year and I just stopped going to class. I was drinking too much. Obviously, I was an alcoholic. Besides, I have addictive personality, emotional eater, addicted to food. But at that time, I was addicted to alcohol. I was definitely an alcoholic. I still somehow went to my job, but I did not go to any classes, did not take tests, did not do homework, did not do anything. And obviously, don't go to class, you're going to fail. So I failed out of school. I think my GPA was 1.2 overall was my GPA. So obviously they kicked me out of school. I was just so upset with myself that I didn't come home. My parents still lived in Lake Geneva, and I moved to Minneapolis. I met somebody while I was up in Minneapolis, someone who I thought was fantastic, the greatest thing ever. I thought he had tattoos, he played the guitar, just thought he was so great. It took a few weeks and I found out that he was actually 8 years older than me. So he was 31. He was a screen printer, so he was doing okay at the job. So, I moved to Minneapolis. I had an apartment by the Mall of America. I was working at the airport. Still, I was struggling. I was always having to call my parents and ask for money for rent because I was using my money to drink. After about a year working at the airport, I actually got a job training horses down in Arizona. I figured if I just leave the situation, leave everything behind, everything will be better. So I went and I worked in Arizona for a year training horses. Still stayed in touch with the guy I met. And we still stayed in touch. I lived in Arizona a year, but then I was too far from my family, too far from my friends, too far from everything. So I lasted about a year in Arizona and I came back. So then I went back to Minnesota and I moved in with him, this guy that I thought was the greatest guy ever. So then I got a job at a bank. I was working at the mall at Victoria's Secret, doing whatever I could to get by. But the relationship was bad news. It was an abusive relationship, physically abusive, emotionally abusive. When we would argue and physically fight, the cops would come, but I didn't want to report anything to the cops. I just said, oh, everything's fine. The cops would leave. I never pressed charges, never did anything. And I just, sorry, I'm emotional. I just let this happen. He made me feel like I wasn't worthy of anybody else. He just made me feel like I was worthless and that I couldn't get anybody but him, that my family didn't care about me, that my friends didn't care, that he was the only one that cared. And obviously that wasn't true. It was just a horrible relationship, and I ended up getting pregnant. And we were just so scared. We didn't know what to do. Our parents wanted us to get married. Obviously, this relationship was just toxic and horrible. He said, I'm never going to do it again. We're going to be fine. We'll raise this baby. We'll be okay. I mean, we had 3 roommates. We had someone living in the basement to help pay rent. I mean, we were drinking, drugs, marijuana, cocaine. It was just not a good situation. Obviously, I wasn't doing any of that while I was pregnant. I just quit doing that, including alcohol, everything. I just quit. But I stayed because it was his baby and I didn't want to do it alone. So, he said he'd change. It was fine for a few months. Things were fine. But after the first time he got physical again, I had in my mind I needed to leave. I didn't leave that day. I waited. I waited till the next day when he went to work, and I left. I packed my car up with everything that could fit in it, and I drove from Minneapolis to my parents' house in Lake Geneva. I was 5 months pregnant at the time. So I just moved back down to Lake Geneva and, told them really what had been happening. They didn't know that I went in a domestic violent relationship. They didn't know that. I got home, I told them. They said, no way you're going back. If you go back, we're not going to let you come back here. So they said, you need to get some help. You need to get some counseling. You need to do something. So, I just stayed with my parents. I was 26. This was 2006. I was overweight. I was depressed. I had anxiety. My self-esteem was in the gutter. I thought I was just worthless and that nobody wanted me. And I had a hard time finding a job. I was 5 months pregnant, so I had a hard time finding a job. But luckily, our local animal hospital gave me a job as a receptionist because they knew my family. So I got a job as a receptionist at Animal Hospital, and I was trying to get back into school. I had a social worker because obviously I needed insurance. So I had a social worker with the county, and she was just a horrible social worker. The worst social worker. She made me feel like I was worthless, like it was my fault, like, I don't know. She just made me feel horrible. And I said, you know what? I think I want to be a social worker. I think I want to help people and not make them feel how this lady makes me feel. So I applied for the social work program at UW-Whitewater. Obviously, with the 1.2 GPA, they weren't going to let me in. But I wrote a letter and tried to get in on a limited basis. So they let me. They said I could start in January with 2 classes. So at that time, my son would be 2 months old. But, I knew I had to do it. So, he was born, everything was going well, we did pretty well for having a baby. And I was with my parents, they were helping me. I was grateful for my parents, grateful for my friends that were still around here that were supportive. Started going to support groups for people who have experienced domestic violence, got a therapist, and started school in January of 2007. So I went back to school, 2 classes I took, a government class and intro to social work. I aced both classes, so they let me in full time. So, I was working at the animal hospital. I was going to school. I was doing the best I could do. I was staying away from alcohol. Obviously, I didn't lose any of the weight that I had gained when I was pregnant. I was still 60 pounds overweight. Still depressed, but working on myself, really working on myself through therapy, really working on myself through the support groups, just really trying to rebuild. Going through court for child support, and visitation. It was just really super stressful and expensive, and I racked up a lot of debt. I just didn't know what I was going to do. I know I was going to get my degree, but I didn't know what I was going to do. Fast forward to 2010, when I was introduced to Beachbody. I had been doing Weight Watchers and Zumba for a few years, and I lost about 25 pounds, but I was stuck. I didn't know what to do. And I had a friend from high school who was a Beachbody coach. She said, you know what, you really need to do this P90X, you need to drink the Shakeology stuff. So I tried it. I said, hey, it's good. She said, you should sign up for a coach to get a discount. I said, okay. So I signed up to be a coach. I was about ready to graduate with my master's degree. When I signed up to be a coach, I had a few months left, and the job market was horrible in 2010. I was just so worried I wouldn't find a job. So that's what Beachbody was. It was to help me out while I was trying to find a job. Did a round of P90X, lost another 10 pounds, bought TurboFire, lost another 15 pounds. So within a year, I was down to my goal weight of 160 pounds. So that was my goal. That's where I wanted to be. I'm tall. I'm almost 5'10". So I was happy. I was drinking my Shakeology. I was doing my TurboFire and my P90X. I was happy. I was a diamond coach. I became diamond in 100 days. So I was making some pretty good money. It was a nice supplement. I had found a job working for the state. I was doing child protection. So, I was doing well. You know, my son's father had visitation. 1 weekend a month, he would come down to Lake Geneva from Minneapolis, and he would go to a hotel with my son, and they would stay there for the weekend. And that went on until my son was about 4. That went on. When my son was 4, he was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. So I'm back to court again because I really did not feel comfortable with having my son who's diabetic. I really felt that he needed to take some classes, classes to learn how to take care of his diabetes. At that time, I just started dating my now husband. So we've been together 5 years. My husband took the class right away. And was really interested in knowing how to take care of my son, but his biological father was not. I went back to court, had his visitation taken away, and since that day, he's not seen my son. So his biological father is completely out of his life. My husband is his father. So that's who his father is. And I thank God every day that he came to us at that time, because that's what I really needed. But I mean, Beachbody has done so much. And when I was going to school and working, I just cried every day having to leave my son home at daycare, home with my parents. God, I can imagine what it would have been like if it would have been daycare. I would cry every single day when I would have to go do these things. I missed out on everything. I had no free time because at one time I was working 20 hours a week at Starbucks to get my health insurance. I was going to school full time. I had a full-time internship that was unpaid. So I never did anything for myself. I never had time with my son. I maybe had a few hours a day. That was it. And I didn't want that to happen again. So me and my husband got married. I swore to myself, I said, I'm never going to be the mom that just cries in my car going to work, leaving my kids at daycare. It's just not going to happen. So that is how Beachbody has changed my life. All those things that I've gone through, I overcame. Beachbody gave me more confidence. Beachbody got rid of my depression, my anxiety. Shakeology has made me a healthier person. It has helped me with my cravings. If it wasn't for Shakeology, I would be craving every day and eating garbage every day and just wallowing in my own self-pity every day. But even though bad things happen, like my daughter passing away, things like that, even though those things happen, I've learned how to overcome them and that I'm a stronger person than my circumstances. And for anybody who's experienced domestic violence, anyone who's experienced alcoholism, depression, anxiety, emotional eating, low self-esteem, any of those things, I just want you to know that I feel you and I understand. And if you ever need anybody to talk to, that's what I'm here for, because my goal is to help working moms not have to leave their kids at daycare and not be crying in the car on the way to work. So I have a great life. I have a great day every day. I get to wake up with my daughter and my son every day. Get to put him on the bus. Get to be here when he gets home from the bus. Go to all his activities, all her appointments. Don't have to worry about asking for time off. So that's really what this is about, and that is how Beachbody has changed me in my life. And I hope everybody has a great day. Bye.